I'm Terry DeCintio. I am the former chair of the commission and former representative for our relationship with Poggio a Caiano, Italy. And I'm just here to help Kate facilitate this meeting and just hope you all get off and running.
Thanks, Terry. I think it would be helpful if we all, I know that some of us had a chance to meet each other the last time we did our virtual meeting. So if anyone would like to introduce themselves to the group and what their role is as far as their representative role within the Sister Cities Commission, that would rock. So if anyone feels willing to go first, go for it.
I can go, I suppose. So I'm Damon Irby, and I'm Director of Global Initiatives at the UVA Center for Politics. I was added to the commission in January, and I'm not yet on any committees because, you know, we never got around to that before we all went home. But glad to be here, glad to be on the committee or commission.
I'll introduce myself. Oh, you go, Neely.
Oh, it's okay. Hi, Neely Minton, Coordinator of Social Studies and World Languages for Charlottesville City Schools. And I started with the commission last November and missed the retreat last year. So thank you for putting this together, Kate. I appreciate it.
So, my name's Elizabeth Smiley, and I'm new to the commission as of this June. And I've stepped on to be a representative for our relationship with Besançon, France. Looking forward to it.
I'm Mike Brunel. I joined in June. I'm the Deputy CISO at UVA. I'm helping out however I can.
Hi, everyone. My name's Amanda Folsom. I've been a part of the commission for a little over a year, and I lead the grants committee, and we'll talk a little more about that later in our agenda. And my day job is focused on public health and international development, so working with a lot of countries to strengthen their healthcare systems and do a lot of cross-country facilitated learning. So one of the reasons I became interested in the work of the commission.
Hi, I'm Adrienne Ward, and I'm on the commission in particular connection to Poggio a Caiano, our Italian sister city, and I believe my role is citizen at large.
Hi, I'm Stella and I'm new too. I just started and I'm from Poggio a Caiano, and so I am the representative for Poggio a Caiano.
My name is Patrick. I'm a former commissioner. I manage the Sister City Commission website. And I'm just on board, just checking it in the retreat, just to hopefully hand off the controls of the website to the next person.
Max, would you like to introduce yourself too?
Yeah, sure. I'd be glad to. So I'm Maxilia Robinson. I am the Deputy Clerk of Council for the City of Charlottesville. I'd say typically Keena Thomas is with you, who's actually the clerk of council, but I don't think she's been able to make any of the recent meetings. So I am filling in for her today. And, you know, however I can be of any assistance, please let me know.
Thanks. All right. So in an effort to get to know each other a little bit better, it's going to be quick, I promise. But did we get through everyone? I think we did. Cool. So I don't know if you know this. This is I don't know if I mentioned it. I'm a teacher. I teach with Admiral County Schools. I do science and a little bit of everything. So I don't know if you know this, but if you're in your box right now and you see that little thing that has 3 dots right there, you can rename yourself to whatever you want. So for this, quick way to get to know each other. In your rename box, I would like you to put your hometown, your original hometown, the one that you think of as your hometown. Ooh. A few more, wait now. Springfield, Atlanta, Oklahoma, oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. So many, I love it. Cool, all right, so that's one. The next one, your favorite restaurant in Charlottesville. Your favorite Charlottesville restaurant. Your favorite Charlottesville restaurant. It's also a good way to get ideas too of where to eat in town. And Terry says C&O, also an excellent choice. Nice. Nice, nice. Love it. So many. All right. Oh, Michael, I've actually never been there before. That place is really good, I guess.
Yeah, it's tasty.
Nice.
They're heavy on the spices. Yeah.
Which one are you referring to?
Canuck, it's the Indian restaurant in 5th Street Station.
Oh, okay.
They happened to open up like, I don't know, a month before the whole pandemic started. But they're still going, so.
A strong Italian showing.
For sure. Last one is, how many years have you been in Charlottesville, Virginia? I'm very curious. We're all very curious, actually. How many years have you lived in Charlottesville? Or I guess you all live in Charlottesville, so how many years have you lived in Charlottesville? Range of times. I love it. Nice. Very cool. All right. I just wanted to get to know you guys a little bit better. I know that typically it's like last year we did 2 truths and a lie, and I just, interest of time, and also just I like getting to know you. I want to make it quick. You should also change your name back to your actual name, as much as numbers are fun. So your name is good. Whatever you like to be called. All right, cool. Thank you. Sweet. So I think everyone has a copy of the agenda. I put it in the chat box. So make sure you got that at your disposal so we can keep track of things. Let's see. Overview of commission, member roles, bylaws, strategic plan. We need to update that. Let's talk about that. Terry, what are your thoughts as far as like introducing, like talking about the commission, or how do we narrow it down into one concrete, here's what we do?
Okay. I think in order to, not take up a ton of time today, sort of going through each and every, line by line, hopefully everybody had a chance to look over the documents. The strategic plan is something that is set out on a 3-year cycle. So we have completed the current cycle, which ended at the end of June 30th, 2020. So this commission should come up with a new 3-year strategic plan. That's not something that's going to happen today. What should happen is when we get to the part of the agenda when we're creating committees, probably a committee should be established to start work on that. Or you all can work on it, as an entire group. But that's really your choice. That's really up to you how to figure that out. So I think for the moment, the idea of this time period of talking about the strategic plan, the bylaws, and the various commission roles would be hopefully that everyone's had a chance to review those. And if there's anything that any questions or confusion that people have, or just some, general topics, now would be a good time to address those.
Well, one thought I had is, it looks, does everyone have a copy of the strategic plan? I'm happy to put it in the chat if folks would like me to do that. Would that be helpful? Did I put it in? Okay, hold on a sec. So let's take a look. Strategic plan. Boom, boom, chat. Everyone, there we go. There's a strategic plan for us for the past 3 years. I'm looking at it it's good. As far as what do we need to update for it? Like 3 years ago when you made it for these 3 years, did you change a lot from the previous strategic plan, or was it something that looked kind of similar?
Well, for instance, we didn't have much of a web presence or media outreach, and we didn't have a website. So you'll see under objectives, that was one: improve web presence, media outreach, and create a new website, which has been done. So that was great. Develop member handbook and improve commission record keeping. It may come as a surprise to people, but our record keeping is vastly improved from what it was before. That said, I think there's plenty more that could be done in that area. We've had several sort of attempts at developing a handbook, but I don't feel like, we're sort of fully achieved on that. So things like that. I think when we developed this strategic plan, we did put together maybe a 3 or 4 person committee who looked at the prior plan and just, updated it, brought it back to the group as a whole for comments and suggestions and discussions. And that's how we handled it. You all can decide to handle it differently. I think we did change the mission statement a little bit. So basically, it is kind of just reviewing the document and looking at, sort of the action items and thinking about what items no longer need to be a part of the plan, what items maybe still need to be part of the plan, but maybe the action item needs to be changed or updated. And then I would imagine that, you all will have some other ideas about things, that you would like to add to that plan. So, like I said, you can talk about it as a full group, or by creating a committee. And that's really your choice. I think sometimes it's easier if you have a smaller group who's able to kind of sit together and kind of go through it and then sort of create, kind of a draft or create specific questions to be discussed by the larger group.
Sorry. Maybe it's something, I know it's not something that we necessarily need to tackle today, necessarily like going through all of it. So I know that this is our first meeting, like our first real meeting in a while, thinking about future meeting dates too, and possibly like using a time in November or in October, but like November, December to sort of maybe set a time for folks to talk about that specifically. Maybe we could set up a meeting date like later on so that a small group could work on that and present it to the commission as a whole. I think that would be pretty easy. So maybe that committee today, if we make a committee for that, can plan a date to meet and put something together. Cool. Awesome.
In terms of the bylaws, it's really just a question of if people have reviewed those and if they saw anything, that they found questionable or troubling or that should be removed or added. That's not something we've, typically made a lot of changes on year to year, but it's always good to just look at whatever documents you have that kind of guide the commission, and just take a quick look at them annually and make sure that everything seems to be in good order. So I don't know that it's necessary to have any kind of committee or anything. This is just the opportunity if you have any questions about anything in the bylaws. Good time to ask those questions or talk about those things.
I have a small question, super detailed, but it might affect all of us as far as meetings. In the bylaws, I'm looking at the section called Meetings, Article 6. And maybe it's just translating the English for me. It's section 6, Meetings, Section 2. A quorum shall consist of a majority, 50% of the members of the whole commission. The members present at a duly called or held meeting at which a quorum is present may continue to do business until adjournment. So far, so good. It's the rest of the sentence that I'm not understanding what it means. Notwithstanding the withdrawal of enough members to leave less than a quorum. Maybe I just need to remember what notwithstanding means.
My understanding of that is that, and so this is important for whoever's running a meeting to know, presumably that's, the chair. If there are 14 seats on commission, and I think there are, but I'm not 100% sure, but we'll just use that number. So let's say there's 14 seats on commission. There have to be 7 members in attendance at least in order to conduct business, in order to take a vote, for instance. That doesn't mean you can't have a conversation if there are fewer than 7, but it does mean that you can't take a vote. And so I think, let's say you had 8 people present at the beginning of a meeting, but when it came down time to vote on something, 2 people had left, you wouldn't be able to take a vote. And so what that means, and this is really important, what we always did was about, in the week prior to a meeting, we would send out usually the last meeting's minutes and an agenda, and we would ask people to confirm whether or not they would be attending the meeting. And the way that you phrase that is important. You want people to tell you either way. Are you or are you not coming to the meeting? Because if you were to find out that less than a quorum of people were going to be coming to a meeting, that could change your agenda. Because if you have something on the agenda that is going to require a vote, whether that's, a request for funding or any kind of action item that's going to require a vote, you might need to know that. What also makes that important is for people to understand that they're making that commitment. You should be making a commitment to be at every meeting as best you can, but certainly in the week prior, when you're asked to confirm your availability and your attendance, that's sort of that extra like, yes, I am coming. And then it always happens that people, the day of, something comes up for someone. Obviously, you want to minimize that as much as you can. Sometimes things happen and people, have an emergency or some urgent reason that they're not able to attend. But it is important to know that your sudden inability to come to a meeting could have that kind of impact. It's not just that you might miss something, some conversation, but it might prevent a vote from being taken. Does that answer your question, Adrian? And if you feel like that's not clear from that wording, that's something that you all could undertake making more clear.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Maybe this is something that you're planning to talk about later, and if so, that's fine. We're not a full committee yet, full commission, or at least, so what are the procedures for continuing to fill open positions? Some number of months after the current term has begun.
So as far as, I believe, didn't we have people apply? There was a student who applied, and also we just filled the Winnable seat as well.
So as of right now, the board has 2 vacancies, the business representative seat and the youth representative seat. And the youth seat is actually an unexpired seat, so the appointee would fulfill the remainder of the term of the previous rep. And the way that would work is council appoints to boards and commissions on a quarterly basis.
Okay.
You guys did have, I think 4 applicants this third quarter. 1 withdrew at the last minute. And then you had 3 other, the Winnable rep and youth rep. Maybe you had 3 applicants, but you had a Winnable rep, a youth rep, and then 1 other person. So 1 withdrew. Council appointed the Winnable rep, and for whatever reason, they did not appoint the youth representative. And so the way that would work is that during the 4th quarter, I'll advertise these seats again, and then council will review all applications during the 4th quarter council meeting appointment phase, and then make any appointments from there. So that won't actually take place until the 2nd meeting in December. So I'll post the vacancies the beginning of next month. We'll accept applications for approximately 60 days. And then the application deadline will be the beginning of December. And then council will appoint them the 2nd meeting in December.
And Maxilia, do we have a role to play in reaching out or encouraging or recruiting even participants?
Absolutely, you're certainly welcome to. And so the way that would work is that once the application deadline has passed, I typically forward the applications to your chair. And then you guys can review, make any recommendations to council. Some people forward those recommendations back to me. Some send them directly to council. Either one is acceptable as long as you get it in on time. And then council, considers your input when it comes time to make appointments.
Okay.
That's one thing we could put on social media too, because I know that we're collecting info about each of us. Could we throw that on the social media as you have open applications. You should apply. Cool.
Yeah. So it won't be advertised. So they can't, if you were to do it, say tomorrow, and they try to go to apply, the post isn't there yet. So beginning of October, it'll be there.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll wait until that's up there until we do anything.
Okay.
It sounds good. Thanks, Max.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
So Max, was the youth or student rep applicant rejected or just not acted on?
I didn't receive any explanation as to why they weren't appointed. I just know the council only appointed 1 member. Yeah.
And so would that person, I assume then that person's received no information back to her application?
Yes, so the way that typically works is that I will respond to anyone who isn't appointed and just let them know that they weren't, that their application remains on file, and should they choose to reapply maybe for that position or another, just get in touch with me and I'll resubmit it at the next appointment period. So,
okay,
so that individual will be welcome to reapply.
Great. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
In terms of any other bylaws, questions, or concerns?
Well, Terry, I spoke with you a couple days ago regarding my questions about Article 8. I was confused about what the standing committee for each sister city was supposed to be. I don't know if it was very helpful to me for you to explain that.
Sure.
Because as the business owner rep, I was thinking, oh, now I got to go form a committee.
Right.
And
Yes.
maybe
Okay,
others
yeah.
would benefit from hearing about that too.
Sure. So the idea is that each city rep would have some group of people that would be available to help him or her with whatever activities there might be, whether that's visitors coming from the sister city you represent, a delegation going to that city, or any other thing that might be happening. So in the past, the Alliance Française group in Charlottesville has sort of acted as that committee for the Besançon relationship. And then there are two organizations in town. There's the Ghana Association and the Charlottesville Winnable Foundation. And so those groups also sort of kind of typically, work with the Winnable rep to provide, any assistance or support, and the other way around. And then for Poggio a Caiano, a group was formed. I formed a group when we were preparing for our 40th anniversary exchange. And then that group of people kind of remained, as kind of a support committee for Poggio a Caiano. So that's sort of how it's been working. They are not necessarily, specific committees, formed by the city rep. That is also fine to do that. But it's basically just, the idea is so that all of, everything doesn't fall on the shoulders of one person. Basically, that you have a group of people that you can turn to for help preparing for any kind of activity or exchange or anything like that.
Great, thank you.
All right. Cool. Moving on. So Kina had some stuff regarding pandemic meeting rules. I don't know if Max, you have anything about that you'd like to share with the group?
Yeah, I can give you all the information that I know. So on October the 6th, from 4 to 7 p.m., Council will be actually having a boards and commissions work session. And I'm sure they're going to discuss a variety of issues, but a lot of those will include things like how you meet, how often you meet, different things like that. That might also be a good time to maybe speak to them about the allocation of the $15,000 that they typically give you annually. It might be a good idea for your chair, vice chair, maybe yourself, Ms. Folsom, to attend, just maybe discuss the needs of the board. I think you're already talking about a meeting in maybe November to bring up that allocation just so that it gets on council's table. You want to do that sooner than later in terms of the allocation because budget season begins in November, I believe. And so just want to get that out there. And so, yeah, so that meeting is coming up. And, I think all the other rules still apply in terms of you guys meeting. If more than two of you get together, it's considered a public meeting. We got to notice it. There are certain rules that have to be followed. So just be mindful of that. But beyond that, I don't think that there's anything else, any more information that I have to share with you.
So if we, hypothetically, if our commission wanted to meet again in, say, November, December, because it's almost October now. Would that be something we'd need to request approval from City Council in order to do this soon?
Yeah, unless they don't, if they don't establish something at this October meeting. So that's why it'd be kind of good for you guys to be there and voice your needs so that, they can, just incorporate your board's needs in terms of how they set up the scheduling.
Sounds good. So I'm sure we can get one or a few folks to go there and advocate for us. That would be super. This would be nice for us to meet again instead of once in large chunks.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's the goal. I mean, they want to try to accommodate you, so it's just helpful to get everybody in the same room and figure out where your needs align, so that they can figure out a plan of attack. So I would definitely plan on attending that. And so what you'll need to do in order to attend is register for the webinar. There should already be a link out there. Go to the city website. And then when they open it up for public comment or boards and commissions comment, Brian or maybe Joe will just instruct you on how to speak during the meeting. So yeah, I mean, it's very simple. You click the raise hand icon and they call on you. Just that simple.
yeah.
And would it make sense for this, for whoever in the group to submit anything in writing beforehand?
Mm-hmm.
What would be helpful or what they'd be looking for?
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't tell you not to. The more information, the better. So, yeah.
And what kind of thing would we be, I mean, Terry, what kind of, or Kate, what kind of information would we want to prepare? Is it a request for permission to hold virtual meetings monthly, or is it?
I think that's something that the group might want to talk about. What is this group comfortable with at this point in time? Do you want to be able to meet in person? Do you want to just be able to meet monthly, in this format? I think it just might be helpful for them to know going in, to have some idea of what members of boards and commissions might be looking for. And it might, I can't say for sure, but if this commission group came up with, something that the whole membership felt comfortable with and could speak, for the whole group, that might be helpful. Or you could, individually, state what you think.
And Max, do the same parameters apply for the individual committee meetings that might need to start happening? If 2 or more people are on a committee and they need or want or ready to begin meeting and working together as a committee, does that follow the same protocol?
Yeah.
So that has to be an open public meeting.
Yeah.
We have to request permission from council for that.
That's right.
And so that's been the real challenge of this, of this situation thus far, is just that because it's a public group, essentially the wheels have had to completely stop turning, because of not being able to meet in person, and because, it's a lot for a small staff of folks at City Hall to manage, a whole bunch of Zoom meetings occurring every, so that's, I think everyone knows that, but I think just knowing that you can't do much at all, you can't really move anything forward at all without having the ability to meet on a regular basis.
Yeah. And so let me just add that the more than 2 people gathering to discuss board business isn't a council guideline per se. Those are rules that we have to follow in general. And what council hopes to do at the October 6th meeting, though, is to kind of flush all this out so they can figure out how you can meet as often as you need to. Yeah.
Everybody's in the same dilemma.
Right.
But that
Celia?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Is it more than 2 or 2 or more?
It's more than 2. Hey, Joe, I'm going to call on you for this. but it's more than two, right? So two people can get together and discuss what have you. You know, if you had a task force of two, then that'd be just fine. But if more than two, is that
Yeah,
correct, Joe?
I believe it is more than two,
Yeah.
and that covers like social media or emails or anything like that. If you reply all to, let's say, a large group email, that's a meeting basically. But I can get some more information here. I've got some from another meeting. I'd be happy to send that along if we need clarification on that.
And this kind of
Thank you.
information is why having like a member handbook or some sort of new member, sort of a formal orientation, I think is really important, because, you know, you don't know this. You don't just know it automatically when you're appointed to any board or commission. And so I don't think, you know, the city doesn't have a process for any member of any board or commission being oriented. I think that's left to the individual boards and commissions. So I think it is important to provide new members with that information in some formalized way.
All right. And I'll see if I can find some literature on meeting protocol and get that forwarded to Kate or to the entire board. So
Since you're all here, you can use the reaction thing on the thing. How are you guys feeling about meeting once a month? Does that feel like something you'd be into? Yes? Yes, meeting once a month? No, meeting once a month? We were usually doing once a month. If once a month feels healthy and good. And is this an official vote? I hope not. We're just trying to get a consensus here on how we feel. So good, okay. I see a lot of thumbs up. So maybe we can, I'm happy to attend that meeting next Tuesday. And is anyone else here thinking they might be able to attend that meeting next Tuesday? Yeah, Adrian?
I don't know. I think I could attend it, but I would like to be really clear on what the goals of attending are. And so if I could just play back what I understand. Do I understand that we are just one commission out of several or maybe many connected in Charlottesville, and all of us are trying to meet and do things and do business, and we need the city council meeting on October 6th to not only give us a go-ahead, but figure out exactly how that can happen and how our wishes can ideally be met or mostly met or partially met, and what the protocols will be for it. Is that what I understand?
I think it's that combined with the allocation, the $15,000 that we also would need to bring up to. And I don't know the proper way of doing that. From my understanding, that was cut before the pandemic started. And if we want a chance of getting that $15,000 back annually for programming, we're going to need to state our case and, you know, what we do with our money, with the grants, with funding some of these travel options. Granted, it's a little hard to back ourselves for funding grants and stuff when we can't go anywhere right now, but for future stuff too. So thinking about some of the programs that we've put money into that have helped the city of Charlottesville, either with developing relations or with promoting international partnerships. That's one of those things too. So along with the meeting thing, it's also sort of saying, you know, this money is going to a good cause, and here's, you know, some of the things we've done with it in the past and we'd like to continue doing.
And if there's anything else, I'm sorry, Kate, but I don't want you guys to just hone on just that. So if there's anything else that you feel like you kind of need council to mitigate, that would be the opportune time to bring that up. I know you guys were considering a Hispanic sister city. Mm-hmm. I know the pandemic has really kind of messed that up, but, you know, it'd be the opportune time to kind of lay everything on the table.
Yeah, and that kind of fell to the wayside before the pandemic, honestly, because it was when we found out that we weren't going to have that $15,000.
The lack of budget allocation, okay. What derailed that initially. But that is exactly what Max said, because knowing that allocation if you knew that it was going to be, returned on an annual basis, that could change things.
Right.
Could I ask one more question? How many of the Sister City Commission, if it's fully peopled, is, you said 14 bodies? And so how many of us are here today that are on that commission? Because I assume Max isn't de facto on the commission, right?
Correct.
And Patrick, you're really moving off.
Patrick and I are not on commission, and Max and Joe are city hall staff. So there's 12.
We have 4 out of 12 here. So 8 of us are here. Does that quorum stand for something like today, like a retreat?
Yeah, because it's more than half.
I mean, is this retreat considered a meeting that requires the quorum for any kind of vote? Okay, so we have 8 here.
I think so.
That means 6 are not here.
Well, 2 haven't been appointed yet.
Okay. So who are the 4? Just so I get a feel for who we are and who's here today and who's not. Who are the 4 that aren't here?
So we're missing Dave today. He's an at-large member. He is currently in Winneba. He found out he was able to go to Winneba for part of the trip. I believe he is he the director of the Charlottesville Winneba Foundation? So he's on that committee.
A Winneba person?
Yes. And so he let me know that he wasn't going to be here. And he was sad to miss this. We're also missing Joan. She is an at-large member as well. My wondering with that is I have 2 emails on file for her, and I'm noticing that sometimes she responds to one and not the other, and maybe she didn't see that we were doing this. Has anyone heard from Joan in a while? So she teaches Spanish at Buford, I believe, and she was leading our Spanish-speaking city committee, Spanish-speaking city finding committee prior to the pandemic. Who else?
There was an email sent out earlier today with a list of all of the committee members. If you haven't yet checked your email, it came not too long before our meeting.
Yeah, Max.
So if you have access to your email, you can check it out.
Yeah.
And Nana is also a member that's missing, and I believe he's joining Dave in Winneba.
Yes.
He's the appointee that council just decided on the 21st of this month.
Mm-hmm.
So both Winneba folks aren't here. I'm just sort of trying to get oriented. And are there two people for each of the 4 cities?
No, there's only one city rep, and that for Winneba, for every sister city. The Winneba rep is Nana. Dave is not the Winneba rep. He is an at-large member, but he has a particular interest in Winneba. Similar to the way you have a particular interest in Poggio, but you are not the appointed rep.
Gotcha. So here we have Besançon's rep in Elizabeth and Poggio and Stella, and we're missing our Winneba rep and Plevin.
I think Joan was initially appointed as the Plevin rep, but that's not something we are. Plevin is not a city that we need an active representative for because there's not an active relationship at this time.
Okay. And then I know everyone else, and I'll get better at this, is in charge of various arms of this whole commission, grants and education and things like that. Okay.
So that's the last piece of the particular part of the agenda we're in, which is the different roles of the different people. And so, there are the city reps. There is the UVA higher education rep, and that's Damon. There's the business community representative, which is unfilled at this time. There's the youth representative, which is unfilled at this time. There's the Charlottesville City Schools K-12 rep, and that's Neely. And then the rest, if I'm not forgetting anybody, are at-large members. And none of that means that, that doesn't mean that anybody who, it doesn't mean that Neely is not interested or not involved in something unless it involves, the public schools, that doesn't mean that. It just means that her particular focus is, to be the liaison between the commission and Charlottesville City Schools, and sort of focusing on K-12 education as a whole. But it doesn't mean that, each of you individually can't be interested beyond your particular scope.
Totally. Let's see. Cool. Can we move on to our relationships? All right, let's talk relationships with our sister cities. I know our Winneba folks are not here right now. However, our other reps are. So any updates on sister cities and how things are going on those fronts?
Would you like me to start?
Sure, I'd love you to start. Thank you.
Okay. So there has been an election in Besançon, and a new party is in power now. I believe the new mayor was formally installed. I was just looking at this earlier. I think sometime perhaps I'm sorry, I don't know exactly when, but it might have been June or July of this year, or it might have been May. So as often is the case when there's a transition of leadership, but also in this case, a transition of actual political party in the mayor's office, there was a complete, it looks like there's been a complete turnover of deputies and staff related. So I am in the process of trying to determine if some of our long-standing contacts are still working at any level in city government, or if we're dealing with a completely new cast of characters. And I think that we are. The second is probably true. So that means part of my job right away is going to be to reestablish contact with folks in City Hall in Besançon and get to know a new group of individuals who have responsibility for international relations and for the sister city relationships in general. Some of you probably know this already, but Besançon has, I think, you can correct me, Terry, 14 sister city relationships. We are
like that.
14. They take this extremely seriously, and they have been a very solid, enthusiastic partner to us from the beginning of our sister city relationship. But so I'm looking forward to making contact, because while on the one hand we're just one of 14, and so we're probably not top of mind all the time, on the other hand they value their relationships very much, and I'm sure they're wondering kind of where we've been. That's first order of business for me. As soon as I get information about the contact, the actual contact information for the newcomers there. Let's see. There are all exchanges, of course, are on hold. I've learned by trying to inform myself of what's been going on in the last year or so that there were some exchanges in the pipeline, but the pandemic has effectively put a hold on all of them. However, I am reaching out. I've already reached out to some of the key folks in Charlottesville who were involved or were going to be involved in those exchanges, just to get an update from their own mouths to my ears about the status of those exchanges and whether or not there's continuing interest in trying to move them forward when the world opens back up and we actually are allowed to travel and also hopefully have a budget to work with again. And then last but not least, there's also been a transition of leadership in the Alliance Française, which is our most important partner organization for the Besançon Sister City relationship. But I happen to know the new managing director there from having done some other things with her, and she and I already have a Zoom call on the calendar for next week so that I can reach out to her in my new role and begin the process of determining what's going on there, what goals they might have for the ongoing relationship, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my status. That's what I can share with you at this point about our Besançon contacts and status report.
A lot of info, so thank you. I feel like everyone's a little bit at a standstill right now, so it's good that you're catching up on this, and it's nice too that we can't do any travel right now because we can catch up on these things and get ready for when things open up again. And
right. I see that that's really the best thing I can do with my time right now is really establishing new contacts and reestablishing contacts that have fallen by the wayside, so that there is still a working a relationship, and when we're able to begin to plan exchanges and other kinds of international collaborative events with them, we'll be ready to go.
Cool.
I'm welcome to hear. I welcome feedback or ideas or advice about that from anybody else on the commission. I'm brand new at this, so I'm in learning mode.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are very new at this too, so you're kind of just paving the right way with the rest of us as well. And yeah, it sounds great though, and I think that just figuring out who these connections are, if anyone has changed, is going to be a big thing in the next few months. As we, I don't know, it seems like there's been a lot of shift there politically and otherwise. So, I don't know, a lot of things may have changed that we're just not aware of yet. So figuring that out while we've got time is awesome. So sounds like
Thank you. Last thing I'll just like to say, I take advantage of having the platform to say this, is that in particular, Neely, I'm very interested in spending some more time talking with you about the educational exchanges that have been such an important part of the Besançon Sister City relationship. Again, it's about bringing myself up to speed and learning who all of the players are in the schools in Charlottesville that have established educational exchanges. So hopefully you and I can find a time, if you're open to that, to talk. You can, bring me up to speed and we can, chat about those relationships. So I'll kind of I'll know more about what they are and what our role is.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Any updates on Poggio? Oop, you're still muted. I'm sorry. Uh-oh.
I couldn't unmute myself. Anyway, not really. I mean, for now, they are not doing anything new on the politics side. Like the mayor Francesco Pugelli is still going to be mayor at least for I think 2 years or 3 years, and then they'll have to do the election. But he can have another term, and from how things are going, it looks like he will not really have any problems in going to serve another term. The only thing that they're doing now is like they got a lot of grants from I think the European Union or the government to do different kind of works in the city. So also like to restore like an old bridge, this kind of things. And again, in the same with the COVID, everything is kind of stuck. They are not doing really anything new. It's getting better there for now. In these days, I think they had, like in the area, not in Poggio, they had new cases. So they are still a little like, okay, yeah, it's getting better, but at the same time, you don't really go and organize anything. They have always been active. They organize different things. Also there are a lot of in Poggio. There are a lot of cultural associations, volunteer associations. So they always do different things, parties or little trips, field trips, whatever. But for now, there isn't really anything new. I haven't spoke to them in a few weeks, but normally I have their contacts and we speak also like on chat on WhatsApp. Not directly with the mayor, but with Giacomo, that also I think Adrian knows, Terry knows. He serves on the city council as is the responsible, let's say, of the cultural activities and this kind of things. So, I mean, I've known him also for because we were friends even before. So, yeah, they know about the new transition, that me and Adrian are the new representative and everything. So, but for now, nothing really new. Yeah, we'll have to think about organizing something when it's going to be possible.
Totally. And I think, one of the things we can think about today, especially as we're making goals within our committees, is coming up with goals that are feasible for this virtual world. And so I think the case for all of our sister cities, including our own city, is that we can't really do these international exchanges as far as like exchanging people or like having people go from place to place, but we can certainly build relationships and form connections virtually. Like we can think of ways where we can make goals that are feasible for what 2020, 2021 looks like as of right now. And
Exactly.
yeah, I think that's something that we can think about today as we're going into those, because it sounds like, a lot of things are at a standstill. So.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Kate. I think two things. One, as Elizabeth was saying, because, there's not going to be like physical exchanges that take up a lot of time, this is a great time to catch up, on some of that work of making and building connections. But also, as which we'll do at the end, as people break up into committees and then start to think towards goals. I think it will be important to think about some ways to remain active in this time. And just because we can't necessarily get on airplanes and visit one another, that doesn't mean that there can't be, virtual events and activities that also can be, they can't replace those, but they can be available maybe to more people than the actual travel. And so that's an important thing to consider as well. It may be a good time to help get other community members involved in the commission.
Totally.
On that, piggybacking on that, getting ready for this meeting, I got my head back in the Sister City game at least for a little bit. And I started thinking about a lot of stuff, like the fountain was flowing about things that could happen, especially virtually. And that's why I'm interested in that allocation, because I think that we're not really at a standstill in a manner of speaking. We could be at a really creative time, and we could start cultural types of initiatives that, you know, involve Zoom or other types of online formats that take a little bit of money to get going or to plan or whatever it may be, but that could be incredibly not just enriching, but in some ways very easy, like you just said, Terry, easier than getting 15 people on a plane to a geographic location, and that open up ways of sharing, you know, from visuals to music to, I mean, most of you probably know how the online world has sort of exploded because of this pandemic. And
Yeah,
I
and I
just
think
that
that's
there are
I
so
think
many-
that's really important, Adrian, and it's really valid. And now that, you know, council is ready to, you know, sit down and really talk about ways that boards and commissions can get, you know, sort of back to business, I think that'll be important. Once that is figured out, you'll have more sort of to work with. Hopefully you'll be able to actually meet more and have conversations and make some plans. And I think that'll be really, I think this time should definitely be taken advantage of as a way to reach out, you know, reach out to our sister cities, but also to engage more people in all of our local communities in this virtual format.
For sure. Any other specific city updates that you guys can think of? I know Winnable is one that we don't have Dave or Nana here, so I don't think we can update there. But Dave is in Winneba, which I think is neat. So he's in the sister city right now. So we can ask him how that went when he gets back. So there you go. Moving on to budget and grants review with Amanda.
Thank you. And I don't know, Max, if you wanted to provide the broader budget update first, and then I'm happy to provide an update on grants. Might be helpful to have the financial bigger picture first, and then we can talk about the grants as a component of that. Does that sound like a good plan? Okay.
Yep. So here's a budget versus actual report for fiscal year 2021. Looks like the carryover balance from the fiscal year 20 was $46,275.10. And I believe Keena may still be waiting on a report of any outstanding grant awards that haven't been issued yet. So you can let me know if that's different than what I've just stated. Let's see. Okay, so for fiscal year 20, there was an appropriation on 7/1 for $15,000. And the carryover balance for FY19 was $54,012.48. All right, so these are the expenditures for 2019. On 7/15, $120 for meeting meals, 8/19, $40.98 for meeting refreshments, 9/17, $200 for rental meeting space for the retreat, 9/17, $26.40 for retreat beverages, 9/17, $150 for retreat meal, 10/28, $7,500 for the Charlottesville Winneba Foundation, and that was for travel scholarships, and 12/19, $3,700 for grant reimbursement to Stacy Evans, and she was a 2019 grant recipient. Now this is for year 2020. On February 13th, there was a $2,000 expenditure for the Charlottesville Winnable Foundation for Myra Anderson. She was a 2020 grant recipient. On March 9th, there was a $7,500 expenditure for the Charlottesville Winnable Foundation for travel scholarships. And on June 22nd, there was a $1,500 expenditure for grant reimbursement to Lewis and Clark Exploratory Center. That was for a 2018 recipient Searles. Guess is how you pronounce Searles is how you pronounce it. So that leaves a total balance of the $46,275.10 that carried over to FY 2021. And I believe that's it. She, in her email to me, she said there had not been any expenses incurred for FY 21 as of yet. And then I'll share this report with everyone.
One thing that might be confusing to people who are new is that because the city's budget cycle is July 1st to July 30th, the budget year, so we're now, correct me if I'm wrong, Max, we're now in budget year 21, right?
Yes.
Yes. So that it can just, you just have to kind of get that in your brain. So, so we received a budget allocation on July 1st, 20 fiscal year, but that was last year, not this year, because the year is half and half. So it's just a little confusing until you get used to it.
Great. Well, I'm happy to provide an update on grants. Thank you for that overview, Max. So in terms of where we are with grant making, as of December, we had, as a commission, committed $14,500 for new grants in 2020. Though there was some pending final approval still required for the CHS Pleven trip, which was still undergoing due diligence at the time. I think that the COVID pandemic hit and all travel, and schools closed, et cetera. So that was never formally approved, but $10,500 was committed, and those grantees were informed of the awards. This included two projects for Winnable, the one that Max referenced that went through the Charlottesville Winnable Foundation for Myra, and a second one, a second Winnable trip was a fire department partnership project that we had approved. The third the third grant approved was for Poggio cultural exchange. All of these have been postponed due to COVID. So all of those projects are currently on hold. Though I think the funding went out to the Charlottesville Winnable Foundation as a administrator of some of that funding. But to my knowledge, the actual project hasn't moved forward due to travel restrictions. In addition, we had approved funding of $2,000 for sponsorship in support of a concert featuring music from Pleven at the Virginia Folklife Festival, which was also postponed or canceled. So that's why there's really been no spending against our grants. So assuming it won't be possible to travel and move forward with the projects as planned this year, I think what's really important is for us to discuss and make some decisions on, do we basically extend the deadline or timeline for the grants? Will they carry over into next calendar year? I think we kind of have done the grant making on a calendar year basis, a little bit outside of the city's fiscal year.
I'm on till 7.
So we'll need to consider whether to extend the deadlines, how we want to treat those grants that were approved previously. and whether we want to move forward with opening another grant application process for the current year. There is some outstanding balance within our grants. And so we had also needed to decide whether and how to apply the remaining grant funds. We had talked about possibly providing some additional support to the CHS Plevin partnership to enable a few more students to participate. But that was, again, pending still at the time of COVID. So that's a little bit of an overview of where we were in the grant making cycle. And so I think a key question I have, and I think for us to discuss is how we, can we extend the timeline for delivering on those projects in anticipation that at the earliest, it probably wouldn't be possible for those originally envisioned projects to proceed. They all involve travel and event gathering in this calendar year. So we could also potentially consider, I think, the previous discussion around grants and opportunities for facilitating cultural exchange in the next cycle. How could we use some of that funding for some of the virtual exchange and some of the probably more minimal costs for Zoom accounts or whatever may be needed to facilitate virtual formats of cultural exchange while things are on hold with travel. So I think that's it. Terry, I don't know if you'd want to say anything further about the grants process from your perspective.
This is not, the pandemic certainly has created, a whole different situation in terms of not people of grants that have been awarded, but activities that have not been able to take place. But it's also not the first time that, a grantee has, run into, things beyond their control that, where they've come back and requested more time. So that would be typically the way that we would handle that kind of thing would be that the grants committee would have that discussion and make a recommendation to the larger group about how to proceed. And so I think in terms of whether to extend funding for those grants that have already been awarded and are outstanding because of COVID, I think, if it's a simple thing and everybody on the call is in agreement and there's a quorum, if there is, I can't count right now, that could be a decision that's made right now. But otherwise, again, when we break into create our committees towards the end of this meeting, that is something the grants committee could take up and then, make a recommendation at your next meeting if it's not time sensitive. In terms of whether or not to have a new grant cycle, that's definitely something that should be, discussed by the formed grants committee, that could then be placed into goals. I don't see why you wouldn't, but when you all are together, whoever you are, you might, come up with a different plan. But as we've just been talking about, just because we can't travel doesn't mean there aren't viable activities that could occur.
Thank you, Terry. I would, I think, recommend if we could get any type of quorum on the idea of extending the current grant timelines, those that are outstanding and haven't been able to move forward due to COVID, into the next calendar year. If that is possible for us to move forward, I think it would be good if we could go back to those grant recipients, check in with them, and also let them know that the commission has agreed that that funding can carry over. We'd like to maybe check in again in early 2021 to see where we are and what is possible, but maybe really trying to protect that funding commitment to those grantees and hope that it could those grants could move forward next year. Does that seem like a reasonable approach with the awarded $10,500 of grant funding.
A thought that I have about that, I don't have any problem extending, especially, given the situation we're in. I do wonder sometimes if city council, or I think we need to work in our favor about that doesn't mean that we wouldn't request and have good uses for the additional allocation. So my fear is just that it might be seen as, oh, last year was a throwaway, move everything up and you don't have to replenish. Because I think while we don't have specific grant ideas or applications right now, because I guess the cycle hasn't restarted, but I just want to protect the future activity and not have a thought that by extending these, then we don't need anything for the current year.
I think that, I see what you're saying, Adrian, and I think just to say, that would be, essentially that is money that was already allocated out of, a pot that had existed. And then when the newly formed grants committee decides to meet, they would also be preparing goals and preparing for the current year, which would have a different pot of money. So it just needs to be thought of, as sort of separate pots of money. And the grants committee would make a recommendation for the upcoming cycle about how much they thought, would be, they would want to spend out. And not knowing what city council may or may not do about allocation is a question, right? Because if you know you have money that's going to be coming in, you are a little more comfortable with letting money go out. But in the unknown, that is a concern.
I think it makes sense to extend the people's grants. I know I'm glad that my office's, my program's grants at Works have been extended. And, I would think if we were in the shoes of those who applied for the grants, that we would want to do them. You build a program and a vision and you want to finish. And I think we ought to give them the opportunity.
Yeah, I think everybody's been affected by this. So, in many cases, I'm sure some of these people can't even legally travel. So, giving them a chance to defer it until after some of the pandemic stuff calms down and it's safer would be good.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. It does make sense to me to, as you suggested, Amanda, to check in with each of the recipients and try to sort of sound out whether the project that they applied for, grant money for, is still viable from their perspective. Because I think I can't imagine any of us would probably, well, I don't know, I'll speak for myself. If the project's no longer viable, then I would want us to know, or maybe to have determined if we're going to offer them an opportunity to apply for the grant money to be used in a different way, or if we're going to, need to reclaim that grant money and make it available for somebody else. But to just blanket tell all of those grant recipients the money's there and it's yours, doesn't make as much sense to me, especially if some of them, can foresee that what they were hoping to do is no longer a priority or no longer a viable option. Mm-hmm. That's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I think that's a great point. And I agree. I think that's a good next step and I can take that on in terms of following up with those recipients to check in and see what they're thinking about in terms of moving those projects forward, and can share back when we can do business again with everyone what the findings from that are. And also, I think bringing the grants committee together around around priorities for the next cycle, once we form the grants committee, will be really important. And I think to think creatively about how the funding, even if we do have some reserve of grant funding from this cycle that wasn't awarded, are there things we'd want to do with that now to facilitate some of our priorities that we'll be discussing more together, or move that into the next grant making cycle?
Can I just add that I checked on your quorum and it's actually 7. So if you guys, I believe you have 7 current members here, 8, I believe. So if you wanted to vote on something, I believe you can.
Is there anywhere online or in any other venue that we can read about the current grants that were awarded? We can learn what they.
We haven't
They-
seen the draft.
There is a grants folder in our Google Drive, and maybe following this, we can send that out. I don't have it in front of me, or I can try to find the link and put it in the chat so you can see. And probably minutes from our December meeting would be the most useful because it's the whole overview of the decision making, and kind of where we left off. If we're able to pull the December 2019 minutes, that's probably the best summary. Then there were some shorter updates our committee provided in the early start of this year.
I'll find those minutes right now. One thing I forgot to mention is that we have two Google Drives right now. One contains more current minute. Yeah, so if you've been looking for recent minutes, I know I sent them to Elizabeth. There were 2 Google Drives, so I will make sure everyone is on the second one too. All right, so let's see here.
Yes, those December minutes do contain bullet points about each of the grant decisions that were made for the last grant cycle. So Amanda, you're right. That's a good place to get a quick snapshot. But maybe there's more detailed information that you want to send us to.
And just
Sure.
Generally on the grant cycle, applications are typically due in the fall.
That's correct. November, I think was when we have to look back to last year's timeline, but it was, I think it was a November deadline. Terry, does that sound right to you?
That sounds right. So normally what happens is at the retreat, the committees are formed. Then each committee comes up with its goals. So for the grants committee, it's usually pretty similar each year. And the goals are to, get the call for proposals out by, and they pick a date, set that time frame, get them back, review them, create recommendations that they bring to the whole group. So that usually decisions are made on the grants before the December holidays. Usually.
That's right. So if we were following that calendar, we'd probably be launching a call for applications in October, to give about a month or so for applications to be submitted, to be reviewed in November, and then discussed in our December meeting. That was the timeline we followed last year. So I think I do have a question about how can we move our grants business forward, and maybe that's part of what needs to be shared in the work session next week, is that we have some pending grants and also interest in keep programming for the next cycle, and that's an immediate business priority really for the commission. But I think it will require a convening of some sort for the grants committee to make some decisions and recommendations to the larger commission about this.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to be able to put out a call for grants or have that cycle, know what that cycle is going to look like until after council reaches their decisions. But that can be part of, that need, or, is certainly something that that can be part of this group's outreach, before that session to council. So you might just, you might have to push your timeline a little bit, but that's, that, especially since there isn't likely to be actual travel. I don't know that that's, it's not a humongous detriment if you have to push your timeline a bit.
Cool. All right. How are we?
Thank you for the feedback. Thanks. Sorry, Kate.
Oh, no, it's fine.
So if you want to, I think what would need to happen, if you want to be able to take a vote about extending the deadline or the timeline for the grants that have already been awarded, what needs to happen is, Amanda, you would need to make a motion, basically, stating your question.
Yeah.
And then that needs to be seconded by someone else. And then Kate can call for a vote, and all the people, the 8 of you who are active members, can vote. And that's how that happens.
Are we going to do that before talking with the grant recipients and getting a feel for
Well, may I suggest, could I put forward a proposal and to address that question, Kate? I'd like to propose the commission vote to conditionally approve the extension of the 2020 grant awards, subject to confirmation of their ongoing viability, to move forward with an extension into next year, 2021. Does that make sense? Can I repeat that, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
if you'd like to. Or yeah, go ahead.
So my proposal is we conditionally approve the extension of the 2020 grant, subject to confirmation of their viability, extension into 2021.
I second that.
Thanks.
Was that you, Kate? Did you second?
I
Okay.
did, yes.
Okay.
And then do we vote by raising hands in the participants or saying something in chat, or what's the best way to do that?
We can take a vote then. So all those in favor of conditionally approving the extension of the 2020 grants, subject to the grant recipients' ability to fulfill said missions within grant. All approve?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right.
Aye.
Got to keep. That's everybody, right? Because I got to keep a record of everyone. Mr. Grinnell, did you vote? Okay. Okay.
Does anyone
Gotcha.
and all opposed? None?
Okay.
Great. Thanks, everyone. I will then follow up with the current grantees to check in on status.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. That'll be helpful information for sure. And hopefully they can fulfill these grants. That would be awesome. Cool. So how are we feeling? It's 5:30. We've been here for an hour and a half. What's the consensus? Would we like to power through, or would we like to take a 10-minute break?
I'd vote for a 10-minute break.
All right. That's totally cool. So it's 5:32 now. Want to say meet back here?
But if others are willing to power through, I'll just step away for a few minutes myself.
My dog needs to get a walk, so I'm totally cool with that. Let's take a break. Want to come back here at like 5:45? Sound good?
Sounds good.
5:45?
That's good.
We'll
Sure.
get through these
Great.
committees and do
Okay.
things. All right, cool. Well, we will see you momentarily. All right. So waiting on a few people to return. But hopefully your break was nice. It started pouring the second we got out. So great timing. But that's cool. Hopefully that was joyful. Cool. So I don't know. So our next point of business is we need to review goals, achievements for 2019-2020. So I'm going to put that in the chat box so we all can see it. Let me just get the link. So there you go. You can check out the goals there. So let's see here. I guess as we're looking through this and thinking about the year 2020-2021, considering that some of these goals, like we might need to shift them a bit just with the understanding that some cultural exchanges in some ways cannot take place in the current state of things. So as we look through the goals, sort of getting an understanding of, obviously this past year has been weird, how can we restructure some of these goals to fit the current state of things? And then, a year from now, kind of readdress this and see what things look like in 2021. So as we're taking a look here.
And I think the important thing is just for this section is just to look at the goals from this past year, review sort of what was achieved and what wasn't, and then this document is done. So when the new committees convene, they can choose to carry over some unmet goals or create totally new ones. So, it's a new year, and if some goals were not achieved and the new grants committee doesn't want to carry over, there's no rules in that regard. And so certainly some things may not be able to move forward, so it may not make sense to include them, in the next year. So there can be contingencies in that way. So it's really more, I think, for this just to see sort of what did we do this past year? What did happen?
Totally, yeah. And I think, we don't have to spend the whole time going through all of these goals. Like maybe for your committee, sort of thinking of like one spotlight, one thing that you want to share with the group about that, considering that a lot of the stuff we planned on doing or wanted to do just couldn't happen. So maybe, I don't know, does anyone have like something they would like to share about goals they made in the past year for this that came through?
Well, could I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
Would it be laborious just for one person who was on each of these committees just to sort of say, met, didn't meet, met, didn't meet? I mean, I don't have any idea which of these goals were met. I mean, I have an idea about some of them, but there's an awful lot of them that I don't know whether they were met or not.
Totally. We can absolutely do that. We can just go down the list if that works, starting with Poggio and then work our way down.
Sure. Yeah, I think we can do that quickly. So I can do Poggio. I was able to achieve goal number 1, which was identifying a candidate to fill essentially my seat before I left. And so that's what brought Stella to this commission. And then Stella was able to work on completing and submitting the honorary street naming application, which was submitted to council. And I guess, I don't know if Stella has any more she wants to say about that. I don't know what the status is at this point of that.
Okay.
Yeah, I never received really anything back from them. What I learned was that I saw something published on the local news that from what I understand, different names, they have to be decided later. So I don't think that for now Poggio was approved officially. I think they approved only like one or two, but there were different ones that were submitted. Yes, but I mean I didn't receive anything officially, so I don't know if there is something else going on.
So maybe, I don't know if Max has anything to add to that, or if that's just something to follow up on, later.
Probably something to follow up on. Yeah. I can try to collect more information for you, though.
Amanda, do you want to do grants, or do you want me to do it?
I'm happy to say a word about the grants goals that I think we mostly achieved the first two, though the grant award, kind of delivering on the grant awards, is still pending and likely to carry over, as we just discussed. The other priority for the grants committee this year was to develop a process of awarding travel-related scholarships to adults. And this had come up as a major discussion point earlier this year in relationship to the trip to Winnable. And so the grants committee met earlier this year to start developing a process for issuing travel scholarships for participants' travel for sister cities trips or other exchanges, with a goal to, one of the major goals there was to increase diversity and inclusivity of sister cities travel opportunities and reduce barriers to participation for lower income residents in Charlottesville. So I think that's really part of the impetus behind this effort and this goal. When we can conduct business again and resume activities and working with the upcoming grants committee, I think this will be an important one to pick up again. We already have outlined some principles and a process that we'd like commission feedback on, but that needs to be further fleshed out and developed into an actual application form and process. And that will also be subject to available funding, of course. So that's another related issue, but that's the other goal. And I think it's probably one we'd want to potentially carry over for next year. Thanks.
For communications and outreach, I can talk about a few of these things, and then maybe Patrick can weigh in as well. So the Peace Poll project is has been something that has been on our goals project for a long time. And I guess it has not happened. And so that is maybe something that the new communications and outreach committee can take that back up and decide whether that's something that we want to move forward with. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about it right now, but just so people understand what it is. The idea is some kind of piece of artwork that could be commissioned locally that has 4 sides or however many sides, with each one representing a different one of our sister cities. We've had talks over the years about what would be a home for it, because that is a big piece of it, was where would it live. We talked about somewhere outside City Hall. We talked about the Botanical Garden when that actually, gets underway. We've talked about potentially as part of a redesign of Market Street Park, once the statue is removed, and that there, I think, will be a redesign. So lots of ideas, but nothing yet that's really moved forward. We have a fantastic piece of mural artwork that was created by a local artist, Uzo Njoku, I think is how you pronounce her name. We had commissioned that artwork for the TomTom bus design contest, I guess 2 years ago. It was not chosen. We resubmitted it last year. It was still not chosen. So the hope was to find a different home for it. And we had been looking at the various, I'm having a cat fight, sorry, various possibilities for mural placement in the community. So again, that's something that the next group will have to decide whether they want to pick up. The promo collateral, I think, just refers to our, we have a brochure. And so looking at printed materials and things that we have to give out to people at various events, and whether that needs to be updated or improved in any way. Patrick, do you want to talk about the website?
Yeah, I can talk about the website. And Charles, you had brought it up in the chat room. In terms of the direction of the website, one of the things, when we first started the website, is myself and Amy Limley. We were the two people that took on the website, and we kind of got direction from the commission on where the commission at the time would like the website to go. You guys as commissioners, you guys can take a look at the website and decide what you would like, how you guys would like to take it, where you would like to take it. Obviously there are some suggestions include, the grant projects that you have done, that have been done in the past. I think on there right now it's a 17-18 grant projects. You could definitely do some of the grant projects from 2019 prior to the pandemic. And so those are, you guys and Charles, you guys and the rest of the commissioners, you guys can decide what you would like the website to be. There are pictures on there. I believe there are pictures in the Google Drive, if I'm correct. I believe there are pictures there that can be used on the website. So you guys can definitely take it wherever you'd like to take it. I think myself and Amy definitely put a lot of work to get it up and running. That we had been, ever since I joined the commission, that was our number one goal. That was for 6 years. For so many years, we could not get the website up and running, and we finally got it up and running in about, I would say 3 years ago. It's like 2 or 3 years ago, we finally got it up and running, and got it up to running to what we wanted. And so, obviously, it's definitely I was just looking at it today just to see what, take a look, and was in there today with Wix, and just seeing what if there's anything that needs to be done. And obviously the roster can be updated, the grant projects can be updated, more pictures and more recent pictures can definitely be updated. I think I've covered just about everything with regards to the website.
Thank you.
If anybody has any questions, I'll definitely go ahead.
Yeah, I had one. So back in June, you passed the credentials to me. I took a look at it, but then we pressed pause on everything, waiting for the quorum for the next public meeting. One of the things I noted was the connection to the Google AdWords and all that. The search engine optimization wasn't completed. Was that intentional, or was that just didn't get there?
I don't think we got there. I think it was just one of those. And the thing is that when Amy did a lot of the groundwork to get it up and running. And so one of the things that when we got it up and running, and then Amy, her term expired on the commission, and so I didn't get her. I started working for the city, and my stack of responsibilities has gotten much higher. And actually, during the meeting tonight, I've been sending emails out to the different city planners and doing all kinds of background work with my job. And so that's something that we didn't get around to doing. And so obviously that's something that's one thing that if there's a goal with regards to the website, that would definitely be something that we would want to do.
Okay.
that's, again, that's where things stand with the website.
Okay.
Thanks, Patrick. And the last goal, we did have a festival of the book event that was planned. But unfortunately, that was literally like maybe 2 weeks after everything shut down was when that was supposed to take place. And the Festival of the Book did, cancel all their events. So whether that event will ever, take place, I don't know. But the committee can decide, how to pursue festival events.
I was just looking at the website. Who responds to the Gmail account associated with us? CivilleSisterCities@gmail.com.
I did in the past.
Okay. I'm like curious if, like, so do you still have ownership of that account? Is it still in your?
I think that Kina has credentials for that, if I'm not mistaken.
I can check on it.
Yeah, so maybe Max can check on that.
I'd hate if someone was emailing us and didn't get
Yeah,
anything back. And then the online form through the website goes to City Council or to Kina?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
And what was that email again? Sister Cities?
CivilleSisterCities@gmail.
Okay.
All right, I can jump into the Education Committee goals. The one goal we had for 2019 was setting up a teacher exchange program for Poggio. We didn't make too much headway with that, but I think that that's something we can restructure as we consider the virtual world and thinking of exchanges on that platform. It probably will be a lot easier to achieve knowing that it can be virtual. So setting up an opportunity to do that, I think would be a great goal for us as we think about that momentarily. So thinking of teacher exchanges or student exchanges on that front. Our goals for 2020, for the first one for 2020, sponsor pitch night for Tom Tom Fest or Festival of Cultures, along with a lot of other things. Those got canceled this past year. So typically each year with Festival of Cultures, we're a sponsor of that, and we have a table there set up. So that might be something to consider for 2021. Fingers crossed, but that might be something we need to rework, considering a lot of public events like this are not happening at the moment. The essay contest, we have that set up and ready to go. It's just more of we had it ready to rock in the spring, right when it was like the first, right after we went into quarantine and this all happened. Put this together, and all it required was, I believe, a vote, like when we were able to meet again on money for the essay contest. So we have not had a chance to actually come back together and meet to talk about said essay contest and prize, because there is a cash prize associated with this. Sort of, having a discussion about that, what sounds reasonable, and then making a vote. And
if that's a goal, if that goal gets rolled over, Kate, one thing that could be considered by the Education Committee is somehow setting it up to feed into the Sister Cities International Organization has an essay contest every year. So you could think about having it be a feeder for that, that the winner or winners of our contest could then be submitted by the Charlottesville Sister City Commission to that larger contest, or not, but that's just an option.
Would that be our job to submit as the representatives of our sister city?
Yes.
Oh, well, that's good to know. That could make things a lot easier if there's already a process in place of an essay structure and format and stuff like that. We could just be, cool. So we can think about like marketing, that sort of thing too. And that's something that we can do in conjunction with outreach folks as well. But yeah.
Hi, Kate.
Hi.
Is this primarily for high school students, or is it also open to college students?
I don't think we defined that. It was just something I whipped together. Like, we can manipulate it however we see fit. So,
Cool. Maybe have two. Maybe have a high school and a college.
totally, yeah. I don't see why not. What I'll do is I'll look into Sister Cities International's essay guidelines. I think that will help guide us.
Yeah, I think that one is a youth one, but I'm not 100% sure. But there's certainly no reason you couldn't, do side by side
I think that we could offer, like, if it is
categories or.
yeah, I think if it's a youth one, we could have two, and like, we can only submit the youth one, but having a college one too, I think is awesome, and I think a great way to connect with the UVA community. So that sounds good to me.
I can talk about the Winnable Goals if you like. I think they met their first goal, the fundraising goals. They did not. I don't know. I think the Woodson Institute one and the Festival of the Book definitely. Well, yeah. No, they happened the prior year. They didn't happen just this past year, but that could possibly have been pandemic related. I don't think they had a Festival of the Book event lined up, but I don't really remember. And they already did achieve the honorary street name. So that was quick and dirty. Besançon goals. We won't make Elizabeth talk about that since she wasn't part of making that.
I think
none of those things occurred.
But she's actively working on number one
for this coming year.
Right.
Yeah. For finance, Potter resigned from the commission, and I don't think there was ever any actual goals created.
I can speak on behalf of the Spanish-speaking Sister City Committee since Joan and Dave aren't here. So goal number one, we did. We had a whole process. We had a public involvement in the selection of the process. It was highly publicized. It was on the news. There was a survey online, which we got for goal number two as well. We met at Buford Middle School for a public forum to talk about this, the sister cities that were up for consideration. Just as a thing to mention, we would just come up with what we would recommend to City Council. So we weren't making any sort of decisions. We were just sort of coming up with which of the cities presented would we recommend to City Council. So we don't make decisions, but we wanted public input before we jumped into it. So for goal number three, connections, we did that too. Yeah. So the Rotary Club that I forgot his name. I want to say Henry from Blue Ridge Rotary Club, and then Jordan from the
Ixtatan
Foundation for Weiwei. Both came out to give their lovely pitches for their cities. And then we got to this point. So soon after that, we found out that we weren't going to be getting the 15,000 allotment, and we kind of put things to a halt because carrying forward with a Spanish-speaking sister city, if we don't have funding, it's kind of hard to continue with adding on another city. But we had a lot of public involvement. That was really cool. And hopefully, I don't know, in the year ahead, we'll have to consider, what that October meeting looks like next week and what we want to do from there. But it seems like adding on another sister city, if we don't have the yearly allotment, is going to be kind of tricky. Adrian.
Is there a sort of a general understanding of what we need in the budget to accommodate however many sister cities? For example, we're at 46,000 right now, and we have 4, but I got the sense from Terry that maybe Levin is on the fence or on the way out or something. But when you say we didn't get the 15,000, which would have bumped 45 or 40, maybe up to whatever. It seems like maybe there's some understanding. We have to have a certain kind of balance to sustain a certain number of sister cities.
I think it's more about not so much how much balance we have, I think it's more so about that we have funding renewed annually so that we know that we have, money that would be coming in.
Yeah, that surplus, correct me if I'm wrong, is from a time when we were raising money for a specific project that was going to be kind of expensive. And so the commission was holding on to a lot of its annual allotment with the idea that this project would take place at some given point. And then once the commission realized just how much that was going to cost, we backed off of that project. So having this much money is kind of rare for the commission. And so it's not like it's going to be like that. Like, this is a rare circumstance. It won't be like this for a long time, especially if we keep funding these grant opportunities and potential scholarships.
And basically that was where, Kate, you're right. And the shift sort of occurred to say, okay, well, we'll use this pot of money to fund grants, over the course of a number of years. So that was sort of that was a sort of a switch there. It was that whole thing happened right before I came on commission. There was like the commission at the time wanted to have a clock made by the city of Besançon, that's a thing that's an industry in that community. And they wanted to have like a special clock. I don't remember all the details because it sort of fell apart right around the time that I came on, but it was going to cost something like $150,000 once that estimate came to light. That group of people that was on commission at that time basically was like, that's ridiculous, that there's no way we can spend that kind of money on that kind of a project. And so there was a surplus, and so we made the decision to start spending that down by awarding community grants.
So just a thought that's running across my mind. I'm trying to be sensitive to the reasons that will be most compelling to City Council to renew this allocation. And if they think, well, you're sitting on a pot of $45,000, you don't need any money, which I understand was at least all or part of the reasoning last year. So when we go to them, if assuming we go to them in a week and say, hey, we need this money, do we want to make a case for, we want to continue to be giving grants to people? Mm-hmm. And I guess what I'm trying to work through without a solid solution, do we talk about grants and the importance of grants and renewing money to be able to award grants? Or do we talk about, we have our largest minority population in Charlottesville is Spanish speaking, and we don't have a Spanish speaking city. I might be off there, but I'm trying to get on the bandwagon. We could deplete our $45,000 by getting a Spanish sister city, but then we're out of money for grants. So just thinking about focusing our rationale, our justification for this request, that this allocation not be ignored until we get down to not zero, but something low enough that gets the City Council's attention.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think the bottom line is you can't have a Sister Cities program if you don't have a budget. Right? There's no way you can't run a program without any money whatsoever. So,
but if your view is, well, you have money, come back to us when you're low.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have to think of something to answer that type of position.
One consideration too was we had aimed to allocate 20,000 this past grant cycle. 10,500 is committed of that surplus. So I mean, while it hasn't been spent, or maybe a little of it was forward funded, but I think about 8,000 of it or so is probably still committed, but not yet spent. So really, we're working with about 35,000 or so, I'd say.
Yeah.
So we'll need to make a decision about, if we would want to continue with that sort of $20,000 range for a next grant cycle as we sought to do this year. That takes us down pretty far into that balance if there's no additional renewal of funding. And then the sister city, I think, is the Spanish-speaking sister city is a compelling, maybe even more compelling to focus on with the council.
And maybe it would be important to be able to point to something very concrete and say, this much for the grants, this much for the Spanish-speaking sister city, and that's why this renewed annual flow of money is important.
I think that's true. I do think if you are going to submit something, or whether you're going to speak, whatever you all decide to do, it's important to make sure that whatever money is already allocated out of that carryover pot, that is stated. Because it's a big difference. It's definitely a big difference. And it's also important, I think, for council to know, because I don't know that they do know. I mean, the decision was made to recommend a specific Spanish-speaking sister city to council, and as soon as the budget allocation was pulled, the commission had to decide not to pursue that. So, we had gone through an entire process. We had made a decision. We were writing up the recommendation, and then Dr. Richardson decided to take our, not put our funding in his budget request, and that basically halted. So that was right before, it was like February. So that was the absolute factor, was the loss of that allocation of funding. Because when you in the process of Sister City, there's a 3-year courtship period where exchanges must occur on both sides. And so if there's not money coming in, there really wasn't any way to be sure that we could commit to that process had council decided to move forward. So
do they know? I mean, is city council fully aware of these not just implications, these
I don't know. I don't know how much was shared with them. I don't know the answer to that.
Is the 3-year courtship period something that's been set by Sister Cities International? I mean, we're following their guidelines. Okay.
Yeah.
So without that knowledge, if city council does not know about that, then they would not necessarily understand why we can't move forward with a new sister city without knowing that we're going to have a budget to work with.
And I believe that's one of the questions that council may raise during this meeting is having boards potentially do like an annual report so that they know what's going on and know what you need and know why you may be asking for money. So, and Keena could speak to whether or not council knew your reasons for asking for the $15,000 better than myself. But I'm not sure how much detail they knew. Can't speak to that.
That's something, Max, I do just want to put out there to everyone is that I think it was Keena who at our last meeting, our sort of new new member meeting,
Mhm.
said you have to ask for that allotment each year. And that was not something we had ever had to do before. So I'm not saying that that was a new thing, but I think the prior clerk of council just did it. So that's just not something that this group was ever doing before. So that was definitely news. And so it's neither good or bad here nor there, but it's just something that needs to be known, and that was of great surprise.
Do you think that that may have been connected to the particular city manager?
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't really know the answer to that.
Yeah.
I got the impression that it wasn't necessarily a new system. So I think the previous clerk was just doing it. But I really don't know the answer.
Yeah, that would be interesting to know if there's a way to know is what are the actual rules and regulations for the funding of the Sister City Commission.
Mm. And I wonder, and I don't want to state anything like facts, but I wonder if you haven't been, the money hasn't been allocated for the commission has always been allocated for the commission in the past. And then when it wasn't, then there's the expectation that so that it remains on the table and everybody know you want it, you need to come back next year and request it. The other thing I wanted to add is that we always have public comment during council meetings. So if at any time, quarterly or what have you, one of you wants to sign up to give some type of brief report for what you guys are doing, it is a very limited amount of time, but you're welcome to do that.
So it sounds like, nevertheless, we need to ask for the money this year. That's the bottom line, because if we don't ask, it won't be given to us. And then that may be 2 budget cycles where we're just off of city council's radar.
Right.
So you all, whoever, you all will have to make sure that you are checking in with Max and Kina to determine when that needs to happen.
Does that need to be by next October? By next week meeting?
I would say you certainly need to attend next week's meeting and place your request on the table. Yes. Okay. And then you can maybe gauge, how soon they would actually need some paperwork to kind of back up the request.
Got it. So next Tuesday, then make the request, and then for some later meeting date, come back with
maybe there'll be some sort of format in which it would need to be.
Yeah. And you don't necessarily have to wait on when you want to submit the request. Budget season starts in, I believe, November. So once you kind of have your ducks in a row, you can go ahead and submit it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's so helpful to hear. Thank you all for that. Thank you for that, Max.
Mm-hmm.
So Kate, it looks like it's sort of time for committees. Is that what you were thinking is next up?
That sounds good. Now, in order for us to meet as committees, I'm assuming we need to go into the breakout rooms or something for the Zoom.
Well, we have to put people on committees.
I see. So we're just making committees now, not doing anything.
We're making committees, right? And then the committees will meet, outside of regular commission meetings once that is possible. After October 6th, when you know sort of what's going on, but the idea for today is just to is to figure out who's going to be part of what committee.
Gotcha. All right. So let's get down to business then. We have,
another detailed process question. There are 14 of us, 8 tonight, 6 or 4 out missing, and there are 5 committees. How many people need to be on a committee minimum? And it's starting to look like we need to be on multiple committees to people this thing.
if you look at the goals document that we just went through, you'll see the names of who was on each committee this past year. And so you'll see that, you know, people usually do serve on more than one committee.
So ideally what you want to think about is looking at these different committees. We have education, grants, outreach and communication, and Spanish-speaking sister city. Which ones speak to you? Which ones you feel like you could, I don't know, do the most with, or feel like you can be a part of?
What are the objectives of the finance committee? We didn't really talk about that.
The finance committee typically is actually just Kina and the treasurer. Not that other people can't be part of it, but it is really more of a just kind of keeping track of where money is coming in and more so going out. And, you know, how is the budget broken down?
That's good news. It's a two-person job.
Yeah, I mean, other people can participate. It doesn't have to be limited to that, but it's not as much of it's not really as active in a creative way, maybe, as some of the other committees. It's more nuts and bolts, typically.
And may I ask a question? The Spanish-speaking sister city committee, is there a general sense that needs to be obviously that needs to be an ongoing committee? Yeah. Well,
I mean, that's kind of, we'll have to see how, you know, the allotment goes, honestly. I think that, you know, it might be something where the goal of the Spanish-speaking sister city committee is to come up with a good argument for us getting $15,000 from the city. Like, I think that that's going to be our biggest push is, you know, if we're going to pursue this, if we have the community support and we want to pursue this, we're going to need to have continued funding from city. So I think that it's a simple goal. It's straightforward, just putting it into writing as to here's what we're going to present city council to pursue the Spanish-speaking sister city addition to Charlottesville, and that 3-year courting period.
So at the beginning, Terry, you mentioned that we need to begin working on another 3-year strategic plan. Is that the work of one of these committees that you already have outlined, or is that a separate committee that needs to be formed to do that work?
That would probably be another committee, unless you want to do it as a whole group.
I guess that's one of the things we have to decide.
It could be something. One thought I had was if we're going to push for, so next Tuesday, we're going to see what the result is if we can meet regularly monthly. And it could be something that at our next monthly meeting, we just make it our one agenda item and we just do it.
Yep, that's an option.
If that's cool with folks. That way we don't have to make a small group of people to worry about that between now and then. So we could.
Yeah, good thinking.
Typically, the education committee is comprised of the higher ed rep, the city schools rep, and then anyone else who wants to be part of it. So, you know, that one may be an easy one to kind of start with, because we at least know some of the people who will be on it. Hopefully because she's done such a great job and for continuity, hopefully Amanda will be willing to remain on grants. But so you might just want to start jotting, Kate might just want to start jotting some names down.
No, I'm here, I'm doing it. So I'm ready. I'm ready whenever you guys are. So I can assume then that Neely and Damon, you guys want to be on the education committee still?
I think that makes sense, yeah.
Cool. I'll join you guys.
Cool.
And does anyone else, in seeing these different committees, Elizabeth, would you like to?
I do have an interest in that because I was thinking that might be a good one for me to serve on, just because the educational exchanges are such a vital part of the Besançon sister city relationship.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
that's just, you know, I don't know if that makes sense. You tell me, you know.
Sounds good to me. I don't know. Like, yeah, totally. I think that it's, yeah.
I would put myself on outreach and communication and grants.
Okay. All right. So, let's see. Anyone else for grants? Anyone else interested in grants? Working with the grant team to talk about grants? Let's see.
I would be glad to join that committee. I get grants and apply for them, so I could be a part of that if we have a need.
Excellent.
Although I would like to just remind everybody that we have a number of people who aren't here who should be assigned to grant, to, you know.
David,
will be
oh yeah.
assigned.
I was going to suggest Dave, maybe we could at least write him in to confirm. He was previously part of the grants committee.
I'm sure he will do it again too. I don't see why not. But what I'll do is I'm keeping track of this here, and I'm also taking minutes. So at some point, probably not tonight, but sometime this week, I will email you guys with all this info, including the committees, and just thinking about, like, I'm assuming Joan and Dave will stick with the committees they're already on. But I know we have, who else are we,
Stella, are you interested in outreach and communications?
Awesome.
Yes, I wanted to say that. That's the one that I would like more.
Perfect. Thank you.
And I'm also interested in grants, but I would also be happy to wait and see if we do need to form a strategic planning committee. That's something that I would be happy to step on too. So I can, you know, I can go either way.
Yeah.
There might be someone else who hasn't spoken up yet that would really like to be on grants. That's fine. But if we need another person, that does interest me.
And we might be okay on that one. You all might be okay on that one with the 4, although you may want a 5th too. Michael hasn't said what he wants to do.
Yeah, I'd like to be on the communications and outreach. That seems to be where the website work is.
Great.
So happy to do that.
Beautiful.
And then strategic plan sounds interesting if that happens.
Okay.
So strategic plan committee instead of doing it as a meeting as a whole group?
I'm up for either.
Okay. Sounds good.
And it may be, Kate, that if you are able to meet, you know, the next month and you're going to devote your time to it, that the people who are interested in that committee could do some of that prep work leading up to the meeting so that it's more efficient in the time that you have.
Sweet. I will make note of that. The Spanish-speaking city committee was me, Dave, and
Joan,
yeah. And that's fine. If anyone wants to join in on that, I think a big objective of us is just going to get something together so that we can eventually ask for money.
looks like you're off to a good start.
Anyone else dying for a committee that would like to join?
And then what you can do, Kate, is you can just, for people that aren't here, you can just assign them into the places you need them.
I could do that. I could also just, what I'm thinking of doing is just reaching out to the folks who aren't here right now and just saying, hey, here are the committees.
Yeah.
Which ones would you like? Because we have it looks like we have a pretty good spread between all of them. So it's not like anything's really lacking at this point. But yeah, just seeing the folks who aren't here right now where they would like to go. I have a feeling we know where Dave's going to end up, and Joan as well. What was Joan on other than, she was on education with us?
And Spanish speaking.
So those two, okay.
Yeah.
Who's on finance right now?
And then, I'm sorry?
Who is on the finance right now?
Well, we don't know yet because that's our next topic, which is leadership roles.
Okay.
The treasurer,
Yeah.
whoever the treasurer is, who was our treasurer before?
For a very brief time, it was Potter.
Oh, okay. Well, we have a need for a treasurer as well, if that's your jam.
So, yeah, so in terms of leadership roles, typically the commission has had either a chair and a vice chair or two co-chairs. In recent years, it's been two co-chairs. And I think you all can decide to go whichever way makes sense to you. I think either works just fine, but you have to fill those leadership roles. And then also secretary and treasurer. So that is a pretty important piece of what needs to happen in the remainder, I think, of this meeting, is those leadership roles need to get filled.
Does anyone feel a strong yearning for any of those leadership roles? We have chair, co-chair. Yes?
If I do some stuff with finances, I'd be happy to do that unless somebody else wants it.
Treasurer?
Way to step up.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.
So, Joe, if you're there, I'm wondering if you guys have to formally make a motion to nominate Mr. Gruner, or for all of these positions. Second, and take a vote. At the end, is that what you want to do? Okay.
You can also nominate people too.
This is Joe.
I think we got it figured out. I think so.
You can nominate, yeah, we can nominate you all. I can't because I'm not on the commission.
You guys can nominate other people to. You can nominate others to be on the leadership roles.
Yes.
Do we have a current chair, co-chair, or secretary, or all of these are empty?
So I was the chair until my term ended, and Kate is the current secretary.
Okay.
I don't think I can make a nomination, but I will put out there what my suggestion would be. My suggestion would be to have two co-chairs. And I would hope that could be either that it could be Kate and Amanda, or Kate and Damon, and that one of those three people would, whichever one of those three people was not a co-chair, would take on the secretary role.
I'll be co-chair. No.
I'll do co-chair too.
Unless Amanda, you're chomping at the bit. I just don't want to be secretary.
Amanda,
you do such a great job.
I would, yeah, or yeah, if you want to do that, I'm happy to stay as secretary too. But
co. Unless Amanda wants to.
So secretary is doing the monthly minutes. Is that the main responsibility there?
I've done it once now, and it's going well so far.
Yeah, the secretary takes the minutes. And keeps make sure that the stuff gets like on the Google Drive, the minutes and any other documents.
I would say it'd be cool if we had one Google Drive too. If I would like to.
Is there anyone else interested in the secretary role too? I don't feel strongly about that, and I'm sure others could be very capable.
Likewise for co-chair, I just throw that out.
I do. I mean, I think the grants committee piece, and if I continue in that role, was a pretty big commitment last fall and early. I mean, it was a busy 3 or 4 months with that. So that's my only concern, is just trying to juggle that with other responsibilities.
That is true.
What I can do, Amanda, if you were willing to take on secretary, it really what we just need to do is get this all into one Google Drive and just work from there. Like, I think it I don't think it would be too much. I'm happy to take on. I have all the social, like, so Tammy had all the social media things from before. Would that be something I pass off to outreach and communications, or because Tammy was our secretary, but she also had the social media things.
Yeah, she did the social media before she was secretary, so that doesn't necessarily go together. I think the social media really, is sort of the responsibility of the Outreach and Communications Committee. However that works. It could be part of the role of the secretary, but I don't think it has to be.
I can pass on the credentials to the Outreach and Communications team so that it's less so.
Yeah, if there's any technical aspects to that, I'm happy to help out where I can. So
it's mostly just posting fun things to social media, but it sounds good. I would like to also say, as I now currently have control of our social media accounts, if you have not sent me your photo and bio, I will gladly take them so that we can tell the world about us. I appreciate the ones I have received from you guys. If you didn't know it, Damon is a master Etch-a-Sketch artist.
Ooh.
And his work is amazing. I showed all of my coworkers and we were all thoroughly impressed, Damon. So it's really good. Like,
see, some people are blessed with talents that make them very wealthy, and I was blessed with Etch-a-Sketch. So, we all have our thing.
They're really good though. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, I'm gonna put it in the chat bar actually, because I was like, it blew me away, the Etch-a-Sketches. So anywho, if you have something fun that you would like the world to know about you, please do the social media things so that I can update our social media while I still have access to it. Because I would love, especially now that there's so many new folks here, to let the world know who we are and what we're doing and why we're here. I think it'd be nice to put some faces to our commission for the peoples. So find a photo of yourself that you enjoy, maybe doing something cool. Maybe traveling. I know Elizabeth sent me one. I don't know. Where were you in that photo?
I was in Besançon.
Perfect. Yes. So, all right. So send me photos and info about you so that I can put it on all the places, and then I will relinquish my social media capabilities for the time being. Although I will want to also, along with that, maybe put out, and Max, I guess once we have the info on when we have the applications up for those new reps, we can put that out there too on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and all the ones we have, so that folks know to apply.
Okay.
But cool.
So am I right in that Kate and Damon are on the roster for being co-chair, Michael treasurer, and did I'm a little unclear whether Amanda's agreed to be secretary or if she was hoping that somebody else would be willing to do that. I will say, in her defense, grants is being chair of the grants committee is a really huge job, especially in the first 6 months of each year. So I will just put that out there if someone else wanted to step in and help them. It is it's really keeping the minutes. There are other bits and pieces, in terms of just maintaining the Google Drive and that kind of stuff, but taking the minutes and then uploading them is really the main piece each month. So if somebody's a good note taker, that's really the thing.
Can we have, sorry, I was searching for the different pages and whatever. I only found one Facebook page, but it doesn't look like it was updated. And I don't know, do we have any link of our pages like Instagram, Twitter? I don't know.
My phone is not on me right now, but hold on. I think I have everything. Let's see here. I know Tammy sent me an email a while back with all of the login info for that, and I think it has the things on there.
Yeah, I think she did. Stella, I thought you were unmuting to offer to be secretary.
I'm not a native speaker.
Well, can't
Well, I mean,
argue with that.
if there's the need, I mean, you have to explain me everything. I never did it before, but I can do that.
I'm still looking for it. I'm terribly sorry. From Tammy.
I put the Twitter one up in the chat.
Thank you.
Oh, good.
I have no idea when Tammy sent me this. What do you think?
You can always send it out, you know.
I might need to. I'm terribly sorry. Oh, wait. Ha! Wait. I found it. Sorry. You know what? If it's easier for you guys, instead of you watching me go through my emails right now, I can just include it in the email that has all of these things so that you can go back to your lives. But believe me, it's there. We have social media. It exists. And it's fine. But I'll update those things soon. So make sure, Michael, I got yours today. Thank you. Make sure you send me your things so people can see us.
Oh, it was also so that maybe we can share it on our pages. I mean, this kind of thing. I mean, it's not urgent. It was just an idea.
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely. So I'll try to do the thing where I tag you too on things. So it's gonna be great. It'll be awesome. And yeah, but I'll include our social media links in that as well, so that you guys have access to that. Yeah, cool.
So secretary.
Great, yeah.
Well, here's a proposal. I mean, I'm happy to step into that role, but it looks like we have a few volunteers for the grants committee. So I'm also would be happy if there's someone who wants to step up on grants committee, and we could do a transition together over the next few months. So that would help me to kind of just manage my load too, if anyone was interested in potentially assuming that leadership role in the future. So I want to be flexible here, but just trying to not overcommit too.
I wonder if Dave would like that role.
It might be kind of tricky because he's a major grant recipient.
You can't take that role.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because he recuses himself from votes that have to do with grants for Winnable related, because he is often requesting that money. So that would make it really hard if he was chair of the committee. It would be kind of difficult.
Yeah, that would be awkward.
Yeah. I mean, you know, maybe, I don't know that you could elect to not fill the secretary role for right now, I think. Is that correct, Max?
Well, it's one of the,
How does that work?
one of the roles that Keena really wanted filled,
Okay.
just because of, you know, the relationship between them and our department.
Can it be filled and then changed? If
I suppose so.
Of the folks that aren't here, I know you mentioned Dave and Joan, and I can't think of the names of the other two, but I'm holding back in part because
Oh, you know, my mistake. I'm thinking in terms of treasurer, but we had someone actually
Okay.
volunteer to do that. So for the secretary role, you could postpone it if you really wanted to.
I think so the meeting minutes, they're uploaded to our drive. Is there any place else they go other than there?
Typically what happens is the person takes the minutes and then sends them to the chair or co-chairs. And then when you make the agenda for the next month and you send out the reminder, you include the minutes so that people can review them. But that's basically it. I mean, maybe you could consider having a different, just for the moment, if somebody would agree to do it at the next meeting, and so, and people could give it a try, and maybe somebody could see that it's not that as hard as they think it might be, and then might be willing to take it on.
I have to say it wasn't that hard taking notes during this conversation today, but I also don't want to do both.
Yeah, and again, it's not up to me, but I think it makes more sense for Amanda, for continuity, for Amanda to stay as chair of grants with it more. I think that's a more important role for continuity than taking notes, personally.
If we tried what you just suggested, Terry, which is sort of a round robin for now, we would still leave the position technically open. Is that right? In hopes that at some point we could vote on it and it could be filled.
Yeah.
That works. So maybe
people think about that idea.
Can you say the idea again?
You want to say it, Terry?
Oh, you want me to? Yeah, I guess just saying that maybe if you don't have somebody who's ready to step up and take it on right now, you could postpone that, leave it open right now, and then maybe you could, maybe each person could, or just somebody could volunteer to take notes at the next meeting, and somebody else could take them at the next, and then maybe somebody would do it and think, this isn't so hard. I'm taking notes anyway for myself. I can do this. And then you can fill it. There's no, you can fill it next month. You can fill it the month after that. It doesn't.
that works. I think, at least for the time being, just, I think, next week we can, whoever is willing to go to that meeting for city council will be able to figure out what the next steps are in getting our next meeting set up. Who knows? We might not be able to meet again for a while. So, but we'll have an idea of that after next week, and then we can go from there. And maybe like someone can just say, "Hey, I'll take this notes for this meeting" or something. So let's cross that bridge when we get there. Maybe if it's not something we need to decide right at the second, and it doesn't seem like anyone is jumping at it. So does that work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could assign the business representative that's not yet filled.
You never know.
But I do think, I'm sure that everybody wants to be done at 7. And so probably your next thing would be that somebody needs to set up the vote taking for the leadership roles so that that is done properly.
If you are being considered.
So just because I help to call votes, I think that it would be best, especially for the public who are viewing this or may go back to view it. Someone makes a motion, someone does a second, and then I call each member's name. And you answer yay or nay, just so that it's kind of very clear what the vote is.
So I'll nominate Kate for co-chair.
I'll second.
I'm sorry, who was that?
Elizabeth.
Okay. All right. Ms. Ward?
Yeah.
Aye.
Ms. Minton?
Aye.
Ms. Kong?
No, aye.
Ms. Folsom?
Aye.
Mr. Irby?
Aye.
Ms. Smiley?
Aye.
Mr. Grinnell?
Aye.
Ms. Mattioli?
Aye.
Good. All right. And so we'll need the same type of nominations for Mr. Irby as co-chair.
I nominate Damon as co-chair. Sorry, that came out awful.
I second. Oh,
All right. Ms. Ward?
Aye.
Ms. Minton?
Aye.
Ms. Cog? Am I pronouncing your last name right?
It's Kogi.
Kogi. Okay.
It's okay.
Got it. I got it now.
Aye.
Okay. Ms. Folsom?
Aye.
Mr. Irby?
Aye.
Ms. Smiley?
Aye.
Mr. Grinnell?
aye.
And Ms. Mattioli?
Aye.
Okay. And for treasurer? We'll need someone to nominate Mr. Grinnell.
I nominate Michael for treasurer.
I'll second.
Okay. All right, Miss Ward,
Aye.
Miss Minton,
Aye. Sorry.
Miss Coggy.
Close. Aye.
Okay.
Coggy,
Miss
sorry.
Folsom. Coggy.
Aye.
Miss Folsom. Mr. Irby.
Aye.
Miss Smiley.
Aye.
And Mr. Grinnells.
Aye.
And Miss Mattioli.
Aye.
Yep. All right.
Yeah, we did it. Okay.
Thank you to all who stepped up. Thank you.
Much appreciated. So guys, this was cool. I appreciate, Damon, you taking on co-chair role.
Sure.
Yeah,
I
thank
think,
you, Damon, and thanks, Kate.
Sure. You're welcome.
Thank you all.
Terry and Kate, we should get together sometime.
Yes.
Since there are 2 members and 1 non-member. Are you all open to meeting in person?
Yeah. What was that?
With appropriate precautions, yes.
Mhm.
I asked if you were up to eating, not eating, well, maybe eating. Actually, Kanaka's very good. I had lunch there just the other day. No, I think it would be nice to get together and talk about the roles we're going to play and what to expect. Because, I mean, really, again, this is my 3rd meeting. So that would be helpful if that's possible.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. And I've been around as long as Amanda has, and that was just a little over a year ago. So we're all fresh.
We can email each other and work out a time.
Totally. And don't count, like, I have a lot of things going on right now with work, but you will get an email from me with the meeting minutes and updated things. What my hope is that I will hear from the remainder of you with your pictures and social media things. And I will send a reminder. But cool.
And
All
one
right.
last thing from me, Keena does actually not have access to that Gmail account. She doesn't receive them. She can't access it. So.
Ooh.
Yep.
That's tricky.
Well, we should maybe change that on the website or something so that we don't have, or yeah, if we can figure out the way to access that in some way. Or actually, I think just taking it off, honestly, rather than having some random Gmail site for us to tap into would probably be a good idea.
Just so you know, the Gmail account that's listed, that's how we access our website. The editing
Yeah, it's kind of
features.
important.
Oh, never
Yeah.
mind. Well, then you guys have access to it, right?
I'll see if I can figure out.
I
I mean, I did not set it up, so I don't know.
just have
how
access
it
to the.
will-
It just gives me access to our profile on the website and the editing features on the website. That's all it does. That's all it does for me.
Is there a way to change that email to something that someone actually checks?
Well, let me see if I can figure out who has domain over it. Because I thought the clerk's office did. So, I mean, I can get into it, but I don't have domain over it. So we need to kind of figure that out.
Well, we don't need to talk about it now, but we should figure it out at some point.
Yes.
Any other major issues before we leave? Going once, going twice. Man. All right. Well, Terry and Patrick and Joe and Max, thank you for helping us, joining us.
No problem.
Yes,
I wanna
thanks,
thank
everyone.
all of you for putting this together. Thanks so much for making it happen.
Yes.
And so along with this, I will include the committees so you guys can independently come up with your meeting dates, hopefully before our next session together to talk about your goals. But Damon, I'll be in touch.
Do we know yet who is able to or planning to attend the meeting next week? Is that something that we'll just exchange email about, or what?
I mean, I know I can make it. I'll make a plan to register and go to it. If anyone else would like to attend, even like maybe if someone wants to go halves and halves with me, like I can do half the meeting, someone else can do another half or something. So we're not doing another Tuesday of extended time. That would be awesome.
So if one of us is interested and can register and can attend, we'll just let you and Damon know.
That'd be awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, it'd be cool to split that up so that, I don't know, we can get a break. But yeah, I think we just need to be there for whatever moment comes to us figuring out when they decide, and it would be good if we had someone there. So sweet.
What I did the forgot password on the Seaville Sister Cities email just to see if it would give us a hint. Does anybody recognize a phone number that ends in 87?
I think it's is it not the clerk's office?
Hey,
No.
hey guys, this is Joe Rice.
Oh,
I think we figured it out. I think my wife set that up when she was clerk of council.
Okay.
And she's checking it out right now. And you said the phone number in 87. Yeah, that would be her number. So
Okay.
you can assist in this endeavor in some way.
Okay.
great.
We'll work on it.
Yeah. I mean,
Mary,
it
you wanna
should be the co-chairs that, keep up with it, but the recovery of it or the something of it should probably lie in the clerk's office.
Well, she's asking me right now what you would like the password to be. So maybe we can have an offline conversation.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Offline conversation.
All right. Thank you.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, shall we adjourn? Go back to our lives?
Yes.
Thank you all so much. This was great. It was nice to see you.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Good to see you all again.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.